Yeah, I need to go chat.
Exactly. And here we are, right? We are live. Of course, this means it's Friday morning. Congratulations, everyone. You made it through the week. Of course, my name is Bryan Armentrout with the Food Safety Foundation with my good friend, Jose Sabal of Sabal Food Safety Consulting. How's things going on this Friday, Jose?
Oh my goodness, Bryan, extremely busy. I woke up this morning, went to the restroom, basic things, and then guess what? Sat in front of my computer, and I have not even done anything outside besides checking emails, answering emails, scheduling some future jobs and trainings and consulting and so on.
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness. Not even nothing, no food, no nothing.
Yeah. In the consulting, like in the coaching role and things like that, right? They call that flow, right? You are just, man, you're just knocking it all out. And
Yeah.
the goal is to stay in that as long as possible. And right. So hopefully then your flow is going to carry over into this conversation, which I bet it will.
Oh yes.
How's the weather down there today in
Oh
Florida?
my goodness. Beautiful, Bryan. I cannot tell you something different.
Oh, so that's going to make it even harder, right? So you're going to be sitting, working at your computer, looking out the window, going, oh, right? It's so
Yeah,
beautiful.
I can look at the window right there and it looks just beautiful.
It's the same here in Loveland, Colorado, which is where I'm at. Today, beautiful day, mid 70s. They're saying tomorrow, maybe mid 80s. Some rain coming early next week, but hey, I'll take it. Springtime in Colorado. So what's interesting too, then, Jose, is they're saying when this storm comes through in the mountains, certain spots may get a foot of snow, right? So it's 85 degrees, snowing in the mountain, craziness. Yeah. So with our food safety chat here that we do every Friday, so if you're new, please go in the chat here and say hello to us. We go live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And the goal here is have a conversation around a topic for food safety. Now, normally what happens with these type of things is you go to a webinar and you listen to the information and you ask a couple questions at the end. This is interactive, right? So we're talking about a topic, and part of the fun of this is then having that interaction. And our friend Stephanie in Germany is here. Thank you. Good morning to you. Well, I guess good afternoon in Germany.
Yeah, for her it's good afternoon. I was just saying, hey, Stephanie.
Yeah, so she's in a beautiful part of the world. So I'm very jealous with where Stephanie is located.
Yep.
So one of the things that we do as part of our ritual with this is have our morning drink. So with this, right, everybody,
yes.
Please say, I remember this time, Jose. So everybody, please join us and get your favorite beverage, or if you're in the afternoon, your favorite afternoon beverage. And I've got coffee, and Jose, of course, has his tea. So join us then for a drink with us here this morning to start our day. Are you don't have your tea? Oh, there we go. Okay. And what always makes it better is if you go, a great big, right? It's kind of like one of those things, right? Is like when you kiss your wife or your spouse or what have you, right? Is you do a little kissing, right? And you go, "Pwah," and you make the noise. Why do we make the noise? There's no actual thing that causes the noise. We just have to make the noise. I don't know. I'm weird. I think that's weird.
Whatever it is.
So Nicole, good morning. My friend Katie. I haven't seen Katie in a long time. Katie, I hope you're doing well. I don't know if you're still up here in the Loveland, Fort Collins area or not, but it's good to see you. Austin, we got a big contingent here from Denver. So Austin, Debbie in Vegas, Costa Rica. Wow, awesome. So Montserrat in Costa Rica. I haven't been to Costa Rica, but I hear it's absolutely beautiful.
It's beautiful. Yep, it's a beautiful place. I've been there. Yep.
Yeah, my Baja, of course, this wouldn't be a food safety chat without Baja here. So thank you for joining us, my friend. On the subject of travel, yeah, my wife and I love to travel. We've been to a bunch of countries around the world. I think we've been to 32, 33 countries around the world. But of course, COVID has just completely ruined that. So hopefully here we'll get to start traveling again. We keep thinking about New Zealand, going back to New Zealand. Absolutely. If you've never been to New Zealand, what an amazing country. But of course,
Never
with
been there.
everything, it's hard to get to, but I mean, absolutely gorgeous. And what's interesting is there's a really good parallel with Colorado. Landmass between the two islands, it's about the same size, and the population is about the same size as Colorado.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's neat.
interesting. Very interesting. Andrew has some questions around change management. That's a good one, right? We can circle back to that. And Andrew, if you'd like to have an offline discussion about that, our emails are here, right? So please feel free to reach out to us. But we also take suggestions like that for future conversations as well.
Yeah.
But today's topic is, what's today's topic, Jose?
Oh my goodness, co-packers.
Co-packers. Oh my goodness. Yes, co-packers. So Katie and I work together at a company, and we know co-packers. Called different names, right? So co-manufacturers, co-packers, but it's essentially the same thing. And I mean, really, Jose, my guess is that a lot of people out here in our audience don't even know what we're talking about. So what is a co-packer?
Well, you know what? And this is something that many people don't know because they just started working for a company or having their own company and doing their own things and manufacturing their own products. But for many people that want to put in the market some products, they just don't have buildings, they don't have equipment, they don't have anything, and they hire another company to manufacture their own products.
Right. So you're a young company, you're just starting out, you're making a fantastic, let's say like an energy bar type product. And you have this little factory and you've got 5 people there and you're making everything. And all of a sudden sales start doing this. And you're like, oh my God,
Yes,
you need somebody to help you make these products, right? So they'll reach out to co-packers in those type of things. Mm-hmm. And co-packers aren't limited to just small companies. Big companies use them too, right? Because you need that to balance your manufacturing. Because if you're a large food manufacturing companies and you have plants in California and you have plants in New York State and Florida, but you need inventory in the Midwest and it's expensive to truck it there. So you're like, okay, I need to find a co-manufacturer in the Midwest who can make my product for me. Oh, are you there? Oh, there.
Yeah, I'm here. For some reason, I got a kind of a little cut in the connection, but I'm fine.
Okay, good. Yeah, such is a life on the internet. So,
yes.
And what's interesting too is what people don't realize too is a lot of there's most, right? There are some exceptions, but most private labels for retailers, so Kirkland at Costco and things like this, are made by co-packers. Those companies don't make their own product. Now, some, Safeway, for example, has some of their own manufacturing plants, and they'll make their own fluid milk and things like this. But a lot, if not the vast majority of private label product is made by co-manufacturers.
Yes. Yep. And and in order to start getting into the details, Bryan, and I know that you have a very good experience with co-packers, but one thing that everybody needs to know is that these co-packers could be anywhere in the world. It's not just that they are in the United States.
Yeah,
they could be everywhere in the world. That's number one. So I'm bringing these up, Bryan, because one of the first things that is going to be critical, I'm going to say, is to make sure that there is a contract, there is an agreement between the parties, between the owner of the product and the company that is actually making the product.
Right.
So what's your experience on that?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So what normally happens is, so let's say within a food company that they say, oh, we have a problem here. We need a co-packer to help us make this product. So the operational group will then go out and start trying to find a co-packer to make this product. So everything has to match out perfectly, right? You need to be in the right area of the country or the world, to your point. They need to have the right manufacturing equipment. They need to have the right capacity, all these type of things, right? So you have within large companies divisions, that's all they do within operations is work with the co-packers and try and figure these things out, because there's a lot of logistics and everything going on. So let's say then that they find a potential co-packer that works. A lot of times what companies do, right, is they focus on what we just talked about, right, is, okay, the business side of things. So the price per unit and the length of the contract, right, and all these legal things that you need to work out. But they're forgetting, and this sometimes goes too far down the line, is what we're talking about from a food safety standpoint and a quality standpoint.
Yeah.
And this is true in business all around the world, and it doesn't matter just with co-packing. The time you get the attention and the time that you can get things done is before the contract is signed. Right? Once the contract is signed and the company has that under their belt, then things become a little harder to do.
And you know what, Bryan? Something that is also very particular. Let's say that I'm the owner of a company, and actually I'm going to answer Corey's question. Let's say that I'm the owner of a company, and we are actually have our own facility we're processing, and suddenly, like you mentioned, sales are going up, 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 and suddenly the demand is so high that we don't have capacity for that. So that's one reason why we might be looking for co-packers.
Right.
And then the other thing that I saw a lot is that even with a contract, Bryan, many people is not very clear about the specific responsibilities of each of the parties. And maybe that contract is not going to be including all of the things that are legally required. Because again, we live in a very regulated world in the food industry. So again, it doesn't matter if you're actually processing products and then you have a huge demand and you need to look for someone else, or you just don't have the money to install the equipment and the building and everything else, and you just rely on someone to process some product for you. At that point, still the regulations and all of the requirements are exactly the same. And food safety and food quality, it's a must. And everybody is supposed to have systems in place to achieve those products consistently.
Absolutely. And I mean, the bottom line is if I'm a Kraft, right, and I go and use a co-packer to make Kraft singles, and there's a recall, it's me. It's Kraft. It's not the co-packer who's on the recall. It's not Smith so-and-so co-packer for Kraft singles is having a recall. It's Kraft is having a recall, right? It's your name on the bottom line.
It's the name of the company and it's the brand that is going to show up. But one thing that is very important, Bryan, is that the actual responsibility, when the FDA starts investigating, yes, the product recall is going to show us whatever is the name of the company. But when the FDA starts investigating, they're going to the bottom and identified who was the facility, which was the facility that actually manufactured that product.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's when they're going to start investigating.
Right. Yeah. So that's why the establishment numbers and the registration with FDA is so important, because that's where they're going. And now think of this in terms too with enhanced traceability, right? So not really the subject for today, but FDA enhanced traceability and first receiver and lot code traceability and your key data and all that information the FDA is requiring if you're doing a high risk food. How's that being handled if you're using a co-packer, right? These are things you need to think about. So from a pragmatic standpoint, which is how co-packers are always approached first, right? As you look at it first from an operational standpoint, because if the logistics and the capacity and the pricing and all these things don't work out, a deal's not going to be made, right?
Yeah.
So you have to figure those things out. Now, part of this too is with co-packers, Jose, there's really three buckets for co-packers that you need to look at as the manufacturer seeking out a co-packer. And this has to deal with that capacity thing that you brought up. And there's the capacity from your viewpoint, right? So let's say that you have a line that's running at 95% capacity and efficiency. You want to buy a new machine, but when you do, now what do you have? You have two machines at 50%, right? So now it's inefficient, right? And that's one of the reasons why they go out and get co-packers until they can balance that a little bit better, right? It's always a rough transition, but it's something that needs to be done. From the co-packer side, they have three different things that they're looking at too, right? And this is from your perspective. You are a small customer for that co-packer, right? And you're only bringing in a little bit of capacity for them and things like that. You're, okay, that's nice, but it's really not very interesting for their business. The other side is you're a huge part of their business, right? Let's say that you're 70% of their capacity in that plant. Then there's a sweet area in the middle, right? Where, and it never, my experience, Jose, is it never ever stays, right? It's always moving. And the problem is if you're a huge part of their business, that means you probably can't go anywhere else because there's no other large co-packer who can handle your business. If you're on the small side, they're just using you to balance their manufacturing, and it's going to be difficult to get their attention. So you need to think about these things in advance, because if I own a co-pack facility, I've got lots of customers, right? And my goal is to fill up my manufacturing. So I'm going to make a little bit of product for this guy and a little bit of product for this guy and some for these two. And awesome, my lines are full and I'm making money, right? That's the game that the co-packers are trying to manage. And it's a very, very difficult game. And now imagine as the co-packer, you have 20 different customers that you're managing in your plant, all with different demands for you, right?
Yes.
Very, very frustrating. So as you're going into this relationship with a co-packer, you need to be sympathetic to their position in that way. And a lot of times what I saw was companies weren't, and it makes the relationship very difficult. Right.
Yeah.
So essentially at the 30,000 foot level, then, Jose, what you're doing with this co-packer is you have food safety that you need to manage, but you don't have any control over it from a practical standpoint. You have to work for your co-packer. So it's a dangerous line that you have to walk down the middle.
Look at these, Bryan. You were saying dangerous. I will agree with you 100%. And I'm going to give you a few examples of those. So the product is manufactured by a co-packer. The product is placed on the market. How the product is placed on the market? Is it shipped straight from the co-packer to the market? Or is it shipped from the co-packer to the owner and then to the market? Those are things that happen. Okay. So now look at these. Who's responsible for the recalls? Oh, the company has the brand. They may, most likely, they will be receiving the calls. Who manufactured the product? The co-packer. The co-packer is the one that is going to actually be recalling the product. So is that part of the agreement? Now look at these other topic, Bryan. The HACCP plan, and I'm saying HACCP, the food safety plan under the preventive controls. Who developed that? Is the co-packer making a product that was designed 100% by the client? Or the client is buying something that is already produced by the co-packer under the co-packer specifications? So what is the case? Who is the actual owner of the design of the recipe and the packaging material and everything else? The client or the co-packer?
Yeah.
And when you get into that is when you're going to say, okay, so I just only have an idea. I only have the brand, and I'm going to be asking someone to make this product for me. That someone, that co-packer, is responsible for understanding what is the profile of that product, what is the intended use, intended consumers, and so on. Develop a hazard analysis, understand which are the preventive controls, and then see if the line and the equipment, the way that they have set up, is going to work for this new product.
Yes.
That's a huge responsibility.
Right. Because what happens in food companies, right, is back to that first step, is they're going out to find a co-packer. And it makes sense from a business standpoint. The temptation of the organization, because they're in pain, right? In most situations, they're searching out co-packers because they need a co-packer. Orders need to be filled. Customers are angry. Things are being shorted, these types of things, right? They need to find a co-packer. And if the business case makes sense, they're going to push really fast on that, right? This is where food safety, to your point, Jose, you need to have really, really strong control at this point to understand these things, because it's your brand, right? And you are giving this co-packer your baby and saying, here's my baby, please take care of it and feed it and take care of it and don't let it sit neglected. And you're taking you need to control these things. So once the business case has been established, it's very, very important in the organization. The organization understands that, okay, now we need to do the quality evaluation, right? So that's food safety and food quality, both of those things, right? And the analogy, Jose, I use for the quality side is that Copac product in the marketplace, because odds are you're making this in multiple plants, right? The customer and the consumer need to look at that product and think it's identical. They don't care what plant it came from. So how are you going to make sure that that's true, right? No plant is identical. Even if they have the same equipment, no plant is identical. The parameters are different, the utilities are different, the steam supply, the people, the training, everything. Those variables make for a difference. And people complain from a quality standpoint when something is different, right? Yes. So you need to go in and do trials, and you need to go in and understand the process and changeovers. And here's the important part too. What else is being made in that co-packer? Now this gets tricky, right? Because the co-packer, you want the co-packer to protect your confidentiality, right? Here is my formula. Here is how you make my product. How are they going to protect that? And how are they going to protect that from other co-packers who are coming into that plant? Because remember, the co-packer wants to balance, and they want maximum capacity. So they're just not making for you. They're making for other people too. And if I'm a customer and I'm visiting that co-packer and I'm walking through the warehouse, what do I see? Right? Oh, look what they're making. Oh, look what they're making. Oh, look at these ingredients. Yeah. How are they going to protect your privacy? These are all quality things that you need to be thinking about. One of the things at a company that Katie and I worked at was we had very, very confidential formulations around flavors, right? Of different types of products. And we came to agreements with kosher organizations and other groups where we could send in the pre-mixed formulation for the flavors and just call it flavor A and say, okay, you add flavor A to this. And then that makes the product. If FDA came in and said, well, we want to know it's in flavor A, we had agreements in place and that they would come to us and then we could have a conversation with FDA. Yeah. And so we were protecting that. Now think of that in terms of food safety, right? If you're the food safety team at the co-packer, you need to understand what's in that flavor A to a certain extent, right? Are there allergens? Are there other things that I need to be concerned about for my food safety plan?
Oh, yes.
Understanding between those two, right? It gets very picky. At the company I was at, we would co-pack things for people too. And we had a customer who was bringing in the same type of thing for us. They would bring in secret ingredients. And we were like, we need to know what's in that for food safety. And they're like, no, we're not going to tell you. Big problem.
Big I mean, you cannot produce if you have that case. Sorry.
Right. So that took a lot of conversations, right? So this gets back to the importance of having these things figured out up front, because once the contract is signed, lawyers don't like to change contracts, right? So you need to figure these things out before the CEOs sign off and hug. Right?
Yes.
And so as Katie says here, yep, as we called it, black boxing of ingredients, right? Very important.
Yes. And actually, Bryan, you brought up something that is also quite unique. I have seen in my, experience as an auditor, that many times the clients are providing most of the ingredients, if not all.
Right.
Okay. So hold on. If I have a food safety program, one of the elements of my system is my approved supplier program. So how that approved supplier program works, okay, when you are receiving the ingredient from your client. So that means that your client now is the one that is actually performing the approval of the suppliers. So when the FDA or when an auditor is visiting you, how can you prove them that you have an approved supplier program? Oh, just
Right?
because you're coming from your client? Okay, your client could be sending you arsenic and mercury to add to your product.
Right. So ingredients, yes. I mean, supplier, right? One of the most important programs in your food safety plan, supplier management. Huge, right? FDA is writing people up all the
Huge.
time for failures. And part of that is what happens is this on the Copac side. The Copacker says, okay, well, we're making this product for you, and it's got some basic things in it. It's got sugar and it's got milk and these type of things, right? We already have our own supply chain for those type of things. It makes no sense for us to get special sugar from you. And we'll say, yeah, you're right. And they will manage the purchasing of that, right? And then there's cross billing and stuff like that. But there's also other ingredients that are like, no, you need to take our ingredients for these things. And then there's a financial side of, okay, we'll buy that and sell it back to you, or you'll buy it through our system and have it shipped in and these type of things. The food safety team needs to understand all of that, right? Because if I'm the PCQI at the co-packer, that's my responsibility. Right?
It is?
Yeah, FDA is going to be sitting down with me, right, Jose? And they're eye to eye with me and saying, okay,
Yes.
Mr. Food Safety Plan PCQI here in this facility, I want to see your supply chain preventive controls. Oh, well, here's some, but these other ones I don't know anything about. FDA is going to say, what? These are things that come into your
answer.
Yeah, these come into your plan. So there needs to be communication between the food safety team at the co-packer and the food safety teams at the company, right? Now, this can get confusing because these arrangements are done at corporate, not plants, right? There's no food safety team at corporate like there's a food safety team at a plant, right? So the food safety team at the co-packer needs to facilitate with the quality team at corporate, right? Because in most situations where you have co-packers, you're a decently sized company. So you've got these corporate people who are managing these type of things. And so my friend Katie here on here understands this very, very well. She was involved with this a lot. And working through these different groups within the companies, right? So the quality group at corporate for the company that wants things co-packed is going to have to go to the procurement and the R&D and all these different groups within that company to get the information for the co-packer so they understand these things. Now, part of this too, and we kind of skipped over this step, is once the company figured out from an operational standpoint, Jose, that this is potentially a good match, pricing is right, logistics are right, we're happy operationally, the quality team needs to go in and do these things that we're talking about before the contract is signed, right? Because once the contract is signed, it's too late.
You're done.
You're not going to get cooperation, right? So they need to go into the co-packer and understand. And here is the problem I see that most companies do with this. And so if you're in a situation like this and you're listening to this, please hear me out on this. The co-packer, you're using the co-packer because you know, right, that they're good. They have food safety systems. They have supplier control. They have SQF certification, whatever it is. You don't need to go back and dominate them and make all kinds of draconian requirements just because you want them that way.
Yeah.
Remember, that co-packer's got 30 or 40 other customers, and if they're all doing the same thing, that co-packer can't work. So a lot of times I would see when we would co-pack for people, giant thick books from that company saying, here's all the things we demand. And it's like, right? And you can't do that, right? You can't do that. So what I would do is I created a Copac Manual. And what it did was it said, listen, we're working with you because we know you're good. We've already audited you. You have a food safety plan. You have to train people. You have supplier management, right? If you didn't, we wouldn't be talking to you. What I need as quality from the corporate side dealing with the co-packer is I need information, right? I need to know data in process. It doesn't do me any good for you to call me up a week after and say, oh, hey, Bryan, I have 100,000 cases of product that is on hold. What do you want to do? Why did you make 100,000 cases of bad product? And I'm just finding out about it now. Right?
Yeah.
Or, oh, hey, FDA came in the plant last week and took samples. Why didn't you tell me that when that was going on? Right?
Yes.
So I need data and I need transparency. I'm not going to dictate to you because I trust you for managing your business. That's why we're working together. But you need to pick up the phone and we need to have data and KPIs and understanding so that there is an issue that occurs. How are we going to handle that? Right. So to that FDA point, that needs to be built into the contract where if FDA shows up at the co-packer, why?
Yes.
Why are they there? So let's say they're there to investigate my product. Well, I need to know about that immediately, right? I need to fly somebody out there
right away.
If FDA is there to investigate another client of that co-packer, I still want to know about that because that can bleed over into me.
Yes.
Right? Because FDA
is a facility.
FDA is going to be walking around in that co-packer and they're in the warehouse doing this, and they look at my product and say, I want to look at that. I know I was here for
actually,
this.
Bryan, look at this one. Let's say that the FDA raises a nonconformity because the building is not in good conditions. That is going to affect each and every single product that is manufactured there. It doesn't matter who's the owner.
Right. Yeah. Let's say, they have improper sanitation and they're not cleaning allergens between production runs. I need to know about that.
You need to know about that. And actually, you know what? I was looking at our chat and Tiago is asking what will be the path for a very strong partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I would like to answer that. The answer is very simple. The answer is that you need, when you are visiting your co-packer to see if they can actually make the product for you, you need to look for the culture there.
Oh, nice.
Oh my goodness. Once you see that there is a culture, that people is actually working nice and they cooperate and there is communication and that the owner is watching and is observing whatever is going on and that everybody is committed to their jobs, whatever, you're fine. Basically, keep a lot of good communications, lots of communication, which is exactly what you were saying, Bryan. You need to know exactly what's going on at that facility each and every single time, every second.
I love that you tied that back to food safety culture, right? Because it's been a constant theme what we've been talking about now for a month, right? This should be high on everybody's radar, right? And in that organization, if you don't look at that, you're running a risk. You are running a risk. And just because they can make the product and they can make it at the price you want, if there's a recall down the road, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yep. I'm working with an institution in Spain, and we are going to be launching a joint class. My company and myself, we're going to be working with this huge institution in Spain, and we are going to start talking to the senior management or top management or owners or CEOs or CFOs or whatever is the top of the organization to make sure that they fully understand what is the new requirement. Because believe it or not, in Europe, it is already part of the regulation, making sure that the food safety culture is part of the company's ways to proceed, not in the United States so far, because I can see that Frank added the food safety culture as a pillar for the smarter food safety approach.
Yeah, the era of food safety. Yeah,
the areas of one of the pillars is the food safety culture. So it's not regulation, but it's under the radar of the FDA. I'm not sure if you know that in the United Kingdom, for years already, I understand that they started these in 2012 or 15 or something like that. When the inspectors are going and checking into the facilities, one of the things that they do is checking the culture.
Mm-hmm. Right, absolutely. I mean, so with all these different elements, I mean, it's kind of a two-stage process with co-packers, right? And really the best way to look at this, Jose, is a co-packer, you're evaluating a co-packer just like you would an ingredient supplier. So the business model makes sense. And now the quality group needs to look at it from a food safety and food quality standpoint. So one of the first steps you're going to do is reach out to that co-packer and say, hi, I'm Bryan with this company, and we're looking at doing business with you, and I understand things are going well. So I need some documents from you. I need your results of your FDA. I want to know if you've had recalls. Here is an audit form. I want a copy of your last GFSI audit, the entire audit, not just the non-conformances. I want to see your corrective actions, right? You start asking for all this data from a corporate side so you can start looking at it and get a general feel. But then you have to go visit, right?
Oh,
So
yes.
you have to do the facility audit and go there and look at these things that you're talking about. So food safety culture and their systems and all these type of things, and making a case or whether or not this is the right people to work with, right? And as go ahead.
And Bryan, that visit is not just okay, let me go to your place for 2 hours and let me, walk around the line and then okay, I'm done. It's a real visit, and you want to stay there for 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days, and maybe not one after the other. Maybe you want the first time be there for 1 or 2 days, and maybe you visit them a month later, a month after that, or maybe 2 weeks after that for 1 or 2 days more to try to find out about how they operate, and
Yes,
interviewing people and asking for records and having a conversation with the PCQI or the food safety team leader or whatever is the name of this person to understand what is the knowledge of this person about food safety, to
right.
understand how well is developed their hazard analysis for other products, and how effective are the preventive controls. Do they have
Mhm.
that knowledge, that understanding?
Yeah, and that's yeah. So Austin's asking a question here. How are they evaluating culture, right? So part of this is what we're talking about. So a lot of these things, and this is the difficulty, I think, right? And so on a past live stream, Jose and I talked about this as well too, is some of these things are abstract. So for example, let's say I'm visiting the facility and I'm talking with the quality manager, and I say, "Can I see your food safety plan?" And he says, I can't show you that. I have to get approval. Really? Why? Well, no, it's a requirement in my company. I just can't show you that, right? I'm going, okay, so you
Hmm.
won't show me the food safety plan for my product. I can understand the competitors. That's all fine. Other products, I don't need to see that, but I need to see it for me. No, I
Yeah.
can't show you that, right? I'm going, okay, this is an indicator of how the future relationship is going to go. And if this
Yep.
Copac here is very to the vest and won't share information, if there's a recall going on, odds are they're not going to tell me, right?
Yep.
So I'm looking at those things. So to Austin's point too, right? One of the things for me is when I go out on the floor and I'm visiting the plant and I'm looking around and things like that, how do the employees react to me? If they see me and they know I'm a visitor, do they do this? Right? And oh my God, hopefully this guy leaves me alone and doesn't talk to me and I don't want to see him and they run away. That's bad.
Yes.
Right? That's not good. Versus employees who, when I walk into the production area, they perk up and they go, ooh, right? And they start asking me questions and saying, hi, who are you? What are you doing here? Oh, we're making this product today. It's a wonderful product. Come here, I'll show you what I'm doing, right? That's a huge up, right? And
Yes.
culture, and that I think that's why people have a hard time with this, right? Is there's data and then there's observation, right? And a lot of time these things, it's not a box you check.
Nope. No, I agree. And look at this, Bryan. Is when you're talking about culture, and this is something that we have been repeating. This is going to be another of our chats talking
Mhm.
about this. Culture is about people.
Yeah.
Okay, culture is not about having a written procedure, or well, you may have a written procedure of how you generally are going to approach the culture, but it's not something that it's just because it's a written procedure. You're going to train someone, expect that person to follow those written procedure, and that's it. It's not going to
Yeah.
work like that because it's about people.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
look at this. To Tiago's point, how do you do this? Okay, one thing that I will do is in order to determine culture is this. So what happens if someone is not following the instructions or behaving properly? What do you guys do?
Uh,
Oh,
uh,
we route them up and we give them whatever a warning and making sure really, because
yeah.
I know that already their culture is you know, going to
Mhm.
die very soon.
Yeah.
So there
Yeah.
are a few things that we can actually do and investigate that are very quick to find out. Because even if you're not asking a manager, you're asking, let's say, an employee, hey, what happened when you miss something or you do something wrong? Are you going to be written up and someone is going to scream at you? If they say, oh, yes, you see that guy there, oh, that's an indication that the culture is not there.
Right. If the company has the attitude of, yeah, if something goes wrong, we're going to find the person to blame, that's bad. Very bad.
Yeah.
It's a
So,
crazy
and that
little
is going
thing.
to affect the relationship between you and the co-packer.
Oh, absolutely. And so for me, if I'm going to visit a facility, one of the things that makes a huge impression, and it's right, it's culture is cumulative, right? It's a whole bunch of little things that lead you to
Yes.
an impression. And for me, if I go to a co-packer and I'm going to audit them and evaluate them to see if they want to be a partner with us and that if we want to be a partner with them, is if in the opening meeting, nobody shows up, right? I come to the front door and I go to the receptionist and I'm like, hi, I'm Bryan. I'm here for audits for a co-packer. Oh, yeah, let me see if I can find somebody for you, right? And then you sit in a room and then the quality manager shows up and he's like, oh, is that today? Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, let's get started. And it's just you and the quality manager in a room, and you're like, ooh, okay, right? Versus, and I had one of my companies at a cheese company I worked for, big plant, had like 500-600 people who worked at this plant, and when anybody visited their plant, the requirement from the plant manager was every manager had to be at the opening and closing meetings.
Makes
So
sense.
the audit, I would sit in on some of these audits from corporate, and I would look at the face of the auditors and they were like, whoa, right? Because you would have 20 people in this room with the auditor and he's like, oh, wow. Okay, great. I'm Bill and I'm here to do the audit. And then they would ask questions and then it's like, okay. And the production manager would be like, I'm at your disposal. Anything you need, you let me know. When you get ready to go on the floor, I want to go with you so I can show you all the things we're doing in our plant. Huge, right?
Yeah.
That's culture.
Yeah.
That's culture.
That's culture. Yeah. So
And, yeah.
selecting a co-packer when you know that there is culture there, most likely, and I'm going back to Tiago's observation, most likely you are going to have a very good relationship with them and a very good output. Most likely your product is going to be fine.
Right.
And regarding the interview of current clients, remember that co-packers on a regular basis are quite strict with confidentiality.
Mm-hmm.
So most likely you are not going to be interviewing clients.
No. And you want that, right? Because you want them to protect your confidentiality too.
Oh, yes.
And guard that, right? Guard it really closely. So, and again, time is flying today. So we'll kind of circle
As
this back.
always.
As always. The bottom line here, guys, and the thing you need to take away, the only time you have leverage for what we're talking about is before the bigwigs at the two companies sign the paperwork.
Yes.
Because once the contract is signed, done deal, right?
Yes.
You now have to work in that system. But if you can get to those places before the contract is signed, and you have to insist on that, and you find these things, now you can go back to corporate and say, you think this is a good deal, but it's not. Here's what I found.
Yep.
Right? And if it's a food safety thing, your moral responsibility then is to fight to protect the company and the brands and your consumers, right? This is going to cause a recall. You think you're saving the company and doing the right thing, but this is not going to work.
Yep.
You have to be able to do it, right? There was a company I worked at where somebody in the past, don't know who it was, but whenever this was brought up, everybody would go, rah, rah, rah. They signed a 20-year contract with a co-packer. And this was already in place when I got there. And we were only like 5 years into it. There was 15 years left of this agreement. What was my ability to influence or get things done in that co-packer? Zero.
Zero.
Very little, right? Because there was a contract, right? And I would call and say, I need this information. No, we can't do that, right? So super important, right? before people, right? Because when the money's being waved in their face, that's when you have leverage, right? That applies with co-packers, that suppliers, everybody, right? So from a quality food safety standpoint, you need to be in there, right? You can't be an afterthought.
And you know what? There is a natural, in my opinion, there is a natural link between food safety and the quality of the products and the implementation of systems for production and quality control. Okay. And that link is exactly what you are explaining right now, Bryan, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The money is coming to the company because the products are safe, they are quality, and they match exactly their specifications.
Yeah.
If the products are not being manufactured in a way that they match exactly their specifications all the time, and that the products are quality products and they're fine, they're always exactly the same, the sales are not going to happen forever.
No.
Because you cannot hold that quality forever. And now
Right.
that product is being manufactured by a co-packer, and you don't have by contract the power to say, guys, you're not doing this okay, you need to change this or do that or whatever it is. Well, you're in big trouble because it's an exposure to our potential recall.
Right. And really, I mean, what we're talking about here, we've only really touched on a couple of areas relative to co-packer selection and management. We've talked about the operational contract side and the food safety, food quality side, but there's procurement and R&D and technical groups. All of these people need to be involved to make sure that this product is going to align, and there needs to be spec agreements and all these type of things, right? It's a huge undertaking.
Yes, that's right.
Definitely. So we're out of time here, unfortunately, but this is definitely a topic we could continue on for sure. One of the things, so I have a audit that I used to use as kind of the initial check of what I would do when I would go visit a co-packer, if it was a potential co-packer. If somebody wants a copy of that, my email's here. Drop me a line. I'm happy to share that with you. So just let me know and I'll get that to you. And you can kind of use that then to, if not necessarily go out and do audits, you can use it to kind of cross-check the different things that Jose and I are talking about and get you thinking about, oh yeah, we need to look at shelf life stability, and we need to look at product comparisons, and maybe we need to do some market testing to make sure the consumers don't see a difference. All of these type of things, right? So let me know if you want that or not. Again, thanks everybody. Fantastic participation. That's what makes these conversations fun, is seeing the people and seeing friendly faces and names that we know and answering your questions, because food safety is collaboration, right? It's all of us working together, right? So definitely. And any other closing thoughts from your side, Jose?
No, I believe that we touch, the most, delicate topics about Copac. Copac is a very huge responsibility.
Yeah, definitely. So again, everyone, we do this every Friday. So it's at 10 a.m. Eastern. I'm in the Mountain Time Zone, so it's 8 o'clock for me. If you're on the West Coast, unfortunately, it's 7 a.m. So hopefully you can use this then to start your day. But again, we appreciate everyone and joining us for this and helping make food safety better for everyone. So great conversation, and thanks everyone. And thank you, Jose.
Thank you, Bryan. Has been a pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
All right, we'll see you next week.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.